Lauren stood in the backyard, frozen, as movers carried away half the furniture she once picked out with her husband. Her best friend April's voice echoed in her head, syrupy and cruel in hindsight. "You deserve someone who really sees you." But April had seen Kyle more intimately than Lauren imagined. Days earlier, Lauren had stumbled across a baby shower invitation tucked inside a drawer. It was pink, floral, and signed. That's when everything broke. Now, 2 years later, Lauren stood calmly in a courtroom, facing both Kyle and April as they awaited sentencing for embezzlement. Her hands didn't shake, her voice didn't falter. They had tried to erase her, but she had rebuilt her power, quietly, completely, and legally. This isn't just a cheating story. It's the unraveling of trust, the weaponization of deception, and the rise of a woman who refused to be the victim. Lauren Mitchell was the kind of woman people called dependable. At 39, she had built a quiet, stable life in Charlotte, North Carolina, working as a senior tax compliance officer for a mid-sized compliance firm. She was meticulous, thoughtful, and known among colleagues for her polished spreadsheets and precise language. Her world was neat, not flashy, predictable, safe. Lauren had been married to Kyle for nearly 9 years. Kyle was everything she wasn't. Charismatic, spontaneous, a top-selling local realtor with a knack for charming clients and winning over entire dinner tables. When they were together, he made her feel balanced, or so she thought. Their best friend April often joked that Kyle brought the spark and Lauren brought the structure. The way a matchbook needs a steady hand. April ran a boutique downtown and had been Lauren's closest friend since college. She was the one Lauren cried to when fertility treatments failed, the one who brought herbal teas and cozy socks when Lauren couldn't get out of bed after another round of failed IVF. When Lauren felt like her body was betraying her, April made her feel seen, understood, whole. At least on the surface. Kyle and Lauren had tried everything: consultations, tests, hormones. Kyle said he wanted kids, but his commitment wavered. He missed appointments. He downplayed the emotional toll. When Lauren brought up egg donors, he waved her off. "You're getting obsessive," he'd say, laughing it off as if hope itself was a burden she needed to drop. April would chime in, echoing his sentiment. "Just let life happen," she'd say. "Maybe the universe has another plan." Lauren never liked that phrase. But she didn't argue. She was tired. Kyle handled their social life, their image. Lauren handled their finances, their taxes, the structure that made his ambitions possible. She set up a retirement plan, filed their joint returns, tracked every dollar. Kyle hated paperwork. "That's your thing," he'd joke. "You're the vault. I'm the face." Sometimes, when Lauren asked questions about his commissions or new properties, he'd get defensive. "Why do you always need proof? Don't you trust me?" he'd ask, usually when they were out to dinner, with April across the table, sipping her wine too fast. Lauren felt the judgment in their silence. April always changed the subject, too quickly, too smoothly. Lauren would swallow her suspicion, unsure if she was reading into nothing. The three of them were inseparable. Brunches, cookouts, holiday shopping. People joked they were a power trio. Lauren clung to that image. She needed to believe in something, especially when her own confidence faltered. April was always there, with a compliment, a distraction, a hand squeeze that said, "You're okay." And beneath Lauren's polished exterior was a growing ache, something she couldn't name. She'd lie awake at night, wondering why Kyle's phone was always face down, why April started dodging her. One-on-one time. Why Kyle's business trips seemed more frequent, more vague. Still, she stayed loyal. Still, she chose trust over instinct. Because that's who she was. The woman who gave everyone the benefit of the doubt, even when it cost her everything. And things began to shift slowly, then all at once. Kyle started canceling their date nights with vague excuses. Client emergencies, late showings, traffic. Lauren would cook dinner only to eat alone, staring at his untouched plate. When she asked, he'd text back something short. "Sorry, babe. Long day." Sometimes he wouldn't respond at all. The man who used to send playful gifs and late-night voice memos now replied with silence. April, too, became harder to reach. She used to call during her boutique's lunch breaks, or swing by with coffee just because. But now, she always seemed to be hosting a pop-up, chasing a supplier, or traveling for branding workshops. Her replies to Lauren's texts grew shorter, smiley faces, instead of real conversation. Lauren tried not to jump to conclusions, but the signs kept stacking. She checked their joint account one afternoon to transfer money for their upcoming anniversary trip and noticed a massive withdrawal. $20,000, 0 cents gone. Her stomach flipped. She asked Kyle that night, and he barely blinked. "It's for an investment opportunity," he said, brushing it off. "I'll explain later. Don't stress." The next week, during a quick lunch with April, the boutique owner casually mentioned a boutique expansion and smiled wide. "Got a silent investor," she beamed. "Came at the perfect time. The number? 20 grand. Lauren's heart stopped. At home, she sat on the couch next to Kyle while he scrolled through his phone. She leaned over to show him a meme, and for half a second, saw a message flash across his screen. "Can't wait to see you again. Love you." Petra's chest. She looked away before he could see her expression. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was someone else. But everything in her body said it was. The next day, she opened her inbox and found a strange email from a florist. It was a thank you confirmation for a bouquet delivery from Dollar Street, Display, and Penn Station. Did you know that Myers was a drug? But the note wasn't for her. It was addressed to April and Kyle. "Congratulations again. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Love always." Lauren sat in silence, her hands trembling over the keyboard. It wasn't just the money, or the distance, or the evasions. It was the creeping certainty that everything she had trusted was a lie. She tried to sleep that night, but couldn't. Her mind raced through memories. April holding her hand after another failed IVF appointment. Kyle hugging her while whispering promises of next time. The brunches, the birthday dinners, the laughter that now felt rehearsed. She wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or the years she'd spent not seeing it. And yet, part of her had always known. There had been too many dismissive comments, too many late nights, too many secrets behind smiles. The truth was no longer whispering, it was clawing at the door, demanding to be let in. And Lauren, exhausted and unraveling, was almost ready to answer. It was supposed to be a normal Saturday. Kyle was at a showing, and Lauren stayed behind to clean the house they were supposed to raise a child in. As she folded laundry, she noticed one of Kyle's socks missing its pair. She opened his drawer to search, and her hand brushed against a folded piece of paper. It wasn't paper, it was glossy. A sonogram. Her breath caught. The black and white image stared back at her, with the words, "Baby Taylor, 14 weeks," printed across the top. Her heart thudded in her chest. She stared at the name again. Taylor. April's last name was Taylor. Lauren's legs nearly gave out. She sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the photo in disbelief. Kyle had had a vasectomy 2 years ago. She remembered the appointment, the ice packs, the recovery. He told her it was temporary, that he just needed a break from the stress of infertility. But this wasn't a break. This was betrayal. When Kyle walked in an hour later, Lauren didn't throw the photo. She didn't scream. She simply held it up, her hands steady, her eyes unreadable. He paused mid-step. "Where did you get that?" Her voice was calm. "In your drawer. Whose baby is this?" Kyle exhaled like he'd been caught cheating on a test. "April's," he admitted. "She's pregnant." Lauren nodded slowly. "You had a vasectomy." "I had it reversed last year," he said, almost like it was logical. "I didn't tell you because I knew how it would sound." Lauren didn't speak. "Supports me, Lauren," he continued. "She believes in me. You've always been controlling." It landed like a slap. "I'm leaving." he added. We didn't plan it this way, but the baby changes everything. Lauren stood up. Get out. He blinked. What? You're not taking anything, she said. Leave now. He laughed awkwardly. You don't mean that. But she did. And she didn't just mean that. She meant something deeper. Because in that moment, something in Lauren didn't just break. It woke up. After he left, she stared at the sonogram for another hour. Then she opened her phone and texted someone she hadn't spoken to in months. An old college friend who now worked at the district attorney's office. Need to talk, she typed. It's about April Taylor. She didn't give details over text, but when they met the next morning, she explained everything. Her friend leaned in, interest peaked. April's finances had already raised red flags. Boutique owners don't usually take international trips and buy new SUVs in cash. They had been investigating potential fraud, missing inventory, fake invoices. Lauren looked her friend in the eye and said, "Tell me how I can help." The betrayal had destroyed her home, but now it had given her purpose. She wasn't going to cry in bathrooms anymore. She was going to uncover everything, piece by piece, lie by lie, and when it all fell apart, she would be the one holding the match. Lauren knew if she wanted justice, she'd need more than just heartbreak. She'd need proof. So while Kyle was moving out and April was curating Instagram stories about her miracle pregnancy, Lauren was meeting with a forensic accountant named Denise Cole. Denise was sharp, fast, and unimpressed by boutique window dressing. Within 2 weeks, she found the first crack. April had received a $75,000 0-cent grant meant to fund small businesses impacted by the pandemic. Lauren remembered when April applied. Kyle had written the application, saying he was helping her navigate the system. But Denise quickly discovered that the boutique hadn't suffered losses during that period. In fact, sales had reportedly increased, and Kyle's name appeared on appraisal documents for the boutique's location and grossly overvaluing the property. It was the basis on which the grant was approved. Lauren's stomach turned. This wasn't just betrayal, it was federal fraud. She made copies of everything, financial records, emails, and even text messages between April and Kyle bragging about pulling it off. Lauren stored it all on a secure drive. She backed up the backup. Then she did something harder than gathering evidence. She acted. Friendly, calm, unbothered. She posted quotes about peace and healing. She liked April's baby posts. She even called to say, "I'm glad you're both happy. I'm moving on." April bought it. She gushed about nursery colors and prenatal yoga. Lauren took notes on everything. Then April did something Lauren never saw coming. She invited her to the baby shower. "I think it would mean a lot to Kyle," April said sweetly. Lauren smiled. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it." That Saturday, Lauren showed up in a blue dress, bearing a gift wrapped in silver. She kept the conversation light. She stayed near April. She asked polite questions, and then, while pretending to browse baby clothes on a table nearby, she pressed the voice memo button on her phone. April was chatting with a friend, laughing about the grant paperwork. "I had to backdate half of it," she said casually, "but Kyle said it'd be fine, so whatever. It's not like they actually checked." Lauren kept recording. Her hands didn't shake. Later that night, she sent the audio to her contact at the district attorney's office, along with Denise's financial report, the emails, and every screenshot she'd gathered. She didn't have to explain much. The case had gone from speculative to actionable. Warrants were quietly prepared. Investigators began interviewing April's employees under pretexts. Lauren stayed silent, still posting about healing and new beginnings. She declined all of Kyle's passive-aggressive texts. She didn't respond to April's gloating follow-up message. So glad we could be grown-ups about this. Lauren was done being the adult in the room. She was setting the room on fire. By the time April posted a sonogram photo with the caption, "Baby Taylor coming soon," blessed beyond belief, Lauren was meeting with the lead investigator and confirming dates for testimony. It was no longer just about what had been done to her. It was about what they were still doing, to the system, to others, to the truth. The trap was set. And Lauren wasn't just a woman scorned anymore. She was the storm they never saw coming. The baby shower was everything Lauren expected. Over the top, curated, and crawling with influencers. White balloons lined the backyard, a harpist played softly under a pergola, and pastel cupcakes spelled out Baby Taylor. April wore a floor-length blush gown with a flower crown. Kyle stood proudly at her side, basking in the performance, not a celebration. And Lauren? She had a front-row seat. And the closing act. She arrived, dressed simply, hair pulled back, carrying a small, silver gift box. April spotted her across the lawn and smiled like a woman who thought she'd won. "Lauren, you came," she said loudly, inviting everyone to witness her graciousness. "I did," Lauren said, handing her the box. "It's something important." April opened it with a theatrical flair. Inside, a folded document bearing the seal of the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office. She blinked, confused. "What is this?" Before Lauren could answer, a voice rang out behind them. "April Jensen and Kyle Mitchell?" Everyone turned as two detectives and an assistant district attorney stepped forward. Gasps swept the crowd. Kyle stepped back instinctively. April's smile collapsed. "What is going on?" she asked, voice sharp. The ADA spoke calmly. "You are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and falsifying grant documentation. Please place your hands behind your back." Kyle's face turned a shade of gray. "This is a mistake," he stammered, reaching for April. April dropped the gift box. "No, no, no. What are you talking about? I'm pregnant," she shrieked. Lauren stepped back as phones came out. Guests whispered and recorded while April was cuffed and read her rights. Kyle tried to argue, but the detective silenced him with a hand on his shoulder. The moment was surreal. April, in her flower crown, being led away in heels that caught on the edge of the rug. Kyle followed close behind, sputtering legal jargon he didn't understand. Lauren didn't move. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Within hours, the news spread. Local realtor and boutique owner arrested at baby shower for fraud scheme. Local outlets ran with the story. National ones picked it up the next morning. Hashtags trended. The videos had over 500,000 views by midnight. Lauren's name was never mentioned, not until she chose to share it. 3 days later, she posted a blog entry on Medium titled, "How I Lost a Husband and Gained Freedom." She shared her story, not the drama, but the facts. The slow erosion of trust, the quiet betrayal, the strategic calm it took to gather truth in a world that gaslit her every doubt. Her words hit home. "I thought I was the boring wife, the over-organized one, the woman who wasn't spontaneous enough. But it turns out I was the one holding everything together. While they built lies, I built a case." The post went viral. Thousands of women shared it. Survivors of infidelity, victims of financial deception, people who'd been told to stay quiet. Lauren became more than a headline. She became a voice. When April and Kyle stood trial, Lauren testified. Calm, clear, and devastatingly detailed. She outlined how the money was taken, how the boutique's books had been manipulated to create a financial illusion. The jury took less than a day to convict. Lauren was awarded full financial restitution and damages. She regained control of the shared assets Kyle had tried to siphon off. April's boutique was seized. Kyle lost his real estate license. They were sentenced to 3 years, with eligibility for parole after 18 months. But Lauren's victory wasn't just in court. It was in the silence that followed. No more late-night questions, no more second-guessing, no more pretending. She walked away, not just with justice, but with peace. She hadn't screamed, she hadn't begged. She'd simply let the truth speak, and it roared. Lauren didn't waste a second of her victory. As soon as the court awarded her restitution and damages, she sat down with a financial advisor, not to celebrate, but to strategize. She knew what she wanted to do with that money. Not just recover, but rebuild, and help others do the same. Within 6 months, she launched a nonprofit called Ledger Light, dedicated to educating women about financial protection in romantic relationships. The mission was simple: arm women with the knowledge to safeguard their futures. The organization offered workshops on red flags and shared finances, legal safeguards before marriage, and how to spot patterns of financial abuse. The first seminar filled up within a week. The second had a wait list. Women weren't just interested, they were hungry for tools, for language, for agency. Lauren also began writing. At first it was just notes, tips, warnings, reflections, but eventually it grew into something larger, a full manuscript. She titled it, "Sign Here, Love, a Financial Surveillance Guide After Betrayal." It blended personal anecdotes with hard-earned advice. It was written with clarity. Her voice was calm, firm, and unapologetically direct. When the book launched, it climbed fast. She was invited onto national morning shows, financial podcasts, and relationship forums. On screen, she sat tall and unflinching. When asked how she kept from breaking, she smiled gently and said, "I did break, quietly, privately. But then I made a plan, and that plan saved my life." Her story inspired thousands. Meanwhile, the justice system moved forward. Kyle was officially sentenced to 3 years in prison. The court denied early parole, citing the breach of public trust in his real estate dealings. April, after months of stalling, finally took a plea deal. April was confessioning. She didn't need to. The chapter was closed. Instead, she focused on something new. She purchased a modest house tucked by a lake just outside Asheville. A quiet place, surrounded by woods, far from the chaos she had once called life. She named it Haven. The first thing she planted was lavender, rows of it lining the back porch, then tomatoes, sage, rosemary, a garden rooted not just in beauty, but in intention. She'd wake up at dawn, walk barefoot in the dew, coffee in hand, and feel peace settle over her like sunlight. There were moments, of course, when memory tugged, soft echoes of what she'd lost. But those moments didn't drown her anymore. They reminded her of what she'd survived. She began mentoring women one-on-one, not just about money, but about mindset, about learning to hear the warning bells we silence in the name of love, about not mistaking gaslighting for grace, and about building escape plans that don't feel like surrender, but feel like power. In time, people stopped seeing her as the woman who'd been cheated on at a baby shower. They saw her as the woman who turned betrayal into blueprint, who took a heartbreak and made it a handbook, who took shame and made it strategy. She didn't just trust again. She trusted herself, and that made all the difference. Lauren sat across from her therapist, knees tucked under her, hands wrapped around a mug of peppermint tea. For the first time in years, she wasn't there to dissect what went wrong. She was there to understand why she kept blaming herself. The sessions were slow, layered. At first she cried more than she spoke, but week by week, the words started to come. And when they did, they were not filled with rage. They were full of realization. She talked about the gaslighting, the comments about being too sensitive, the financial decisions made behind her back, the way April had always managed to be available for Kyle but mysteriously unavailable for her. Lauren finally said it aloud. "They didn't just betray me. They manipulated me into silence." Her therapist nodded and said, and you learn to speak with action. Lauren began rebuilding her emotional landscape with the same quiet discipline she'd applied to her financial recovery. She threw out boxes of old documents, old birthday cards, dried flowers, and gifts that once meant something. But she kept one photo, a single, faded snapshot of her in April, arms linked at a summer fair. It didn't hurt to look at anymore. She didn't keep it to remember the betrayal. She kept it to honor how far she'd come since that moment. To remind herself what trust looked like, and how easily it could be weaponized. She started journaling again. Not to chronicle pain, but to track healing. She wrote letters she never sent. Letters to Kyle, to April, but also to herself. The version of Lauren who once felt invisible in her own marriage. The version who clung to loyalty even when it burned. She ended one entry with, "You didn't deserve it. And you don't have to carry it anymore." On the anniversary of her divorce, she didn't cry. She didn't throw a party. Instead, she lit a single candle on her back porch, the garden in full bloom around her. She watched the flame flicker and whispered, "I didn't lose. I learned." Lauren knew that her quiet wasn't weakness. Her silence during those months of deceit had been her strategy. Her stillness was how she gathered truth, how she positioned herself for justice. And now, that silence had become strength, a power that didn't scream, but stood tall. Sometimes, she'd catch herself humming in the kitchen. Nothing dramatic, just soft tunes drifting while she brewed tea or watered plants. She wasn't haunted anymore. She was whole. She wasn't looking over her shoulder. She wasn't waiting for the next betrayal. She was here. She was free. And for the first time in a very long time, Lauren Mitchell liked the sound of her own name when she said it out loud. He cheated. She lied. They built a future on fraud and thought I'd be too stunned to fight back. But they underestimated the power of silence. They mistook stillness for surrender. What they didn't know is that quiet women are the ones who gather the most evidence. My name is Lauren Mitchell. I lost everything I thought I needed. My marriage, my best friend, my sense of safety. And in their place, I found something far more lasting. I found clarity. I found resolve. I found myself. I didn't need to raise my voice to be heard. I didn't need to make a scene, to make a statement. I let the facts speak. I let justice do its work. And when the world saw what they tried to hide, it was too late for them to rewrite the truth. If you've ever been betrayed by the people closest to you, if you've ever questioned your instincts or been told you were overreacting, this is your reminder. You are not broken. You are awakening. Clarity is louder than chaos, and revenge, when done right, doesn't require shouting. It requires strategy. Subscribe to Veiled Fury for more stories of strength reclaimed and betrayal shattered, because silence isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of everything.